All right. Hello, hello. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Boise City Department of Arts and History's annual grant information session. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the broader history of the land from which I am presenting. We recognize that the city of Boise is located on the ancestral, cultural, traditional, and unceded territory of the Shoshone, Bannock, and Northern Paiute people. We commit to honoring their history through ongoing learning, reflection, and actions that support Indigenous sovereignty and the future of this community. This is a live information session that is being recorded for future use and reference. I want to give a special thank you to Lavona Andrew Carson for providing ASL interpretation today. A recording of this session will be posted in the coming days on Arts and History's grant webpage and Arts and History's YouTube channel. So you can find this again in both those locations within this week. If you would like English language captions, you can find those by clicking Live Transcript. There's a button at the bottom of your screen, and then selecting Show Subtitle. And then I would strongly encourage your questions and that you send them through either the chat or the Q&A box. Both should be accessible to you today. And I will answer as many of your questions as I can at the end of this presentation. And your question might get answered along the way as we go. I would say that if your question is really specific to your project that you are seeking grant funding for, then maybe you hold that and I will share how to get in contact with me throughout this presentation and we can talk in more depth at a later time. All right. So firstly, a quick introduction before we jump into all the details. My name is Mackenzie Dunstan, and I serve as the Grants and Outreach Manager for the Boise City Department of Arts and History. You can see my email, phone number up there for how you can contact me. In addition to the grants program, I also manage the city's cultural ambassador program. Boise Phil is currently the city of Boise's cultural ambassador, and I co-manage the Boise City Writer in Residence program alongside the Boise Public Library and the Cavern Literary Center. So lots of incredible opportunities for our community, arts community. I also coordinate Arts and History's outreach efforts, specifically around our two cultural sites, the Irma Heyman House and the James Castle House. So I'm always happy to connect by phone, email, or in person on any of these things. And I host office hours every week, Monday, Thursdays, and Friday, if you want to connect in person or virtually and go a little deeper. So the plan today, we are going to talk through what the annual grant is and its purpose. We're also going to review eligibility and requirements for applying for this grant, talk about funding, what you can ask for, and what are some restrictions to funding. I want to make sure that evaluation criteria is really clear. How are you being scored when you submit an application and by who? So what does that review process look like and the approximate timeline that you can expect? And then I want to look more closely at the application and some really important budget pieces for the application. And then I'll wrap it up with some suggestions, some opportunities for support, and then time for Q&A. So that is the plan. All right. So the annual grant program is something that is offered once a year. We open the call, and it is designed to fund meaningful creative projects and programs for Boise residents. So this program supports the Department of Arts and History's mission to cultivate a distinct sense of place that looks at Boise's rich past, our diverse communities, and our unique settings that are here, and to really create some opportunities that nurture and sustain our creative economy within this community. Overall, we hope that this program brings people together, builds positive relationships, fun experiences, in hopes that as part of the City of Boise's larger mission of creating a city for everyone happens. So just wanted to highlight here a few visual examples of the kinds of programs and projects that this grant opportunity has funded in the past. We have things such as literary events, educational music and dance outreach programs, cultural dance performances, audio and digital projects, and research projects, lots of musical and theater performances, and cultural festivals, just to name a few. This is definitely giving the high level sort of summary of the kinds of projects we funded. You can see the long list of all these projects and the organizations that have put them on the department's website if you want to dig in a little deeper. But there are so many opportunities here when it comes to all things arts, history, and culture for this funding opportunity. So before we get into all the details, we should probably start with eligibility and requirements and reflecting on if you are eligible to apply for this grant. So the first thing that we're looking at is uh, geography. You are eligible to apply for this grant if you meet the following criteria. You are an individual or part of an organization or a community group that offers arts, history, or cultural-based programming or projects within Boise, Idaho, so within Boise city limits. And then your organization or community group resides or operates generally within Ada, Boise, Canyon, Elmore, or Jim County. So you should be able to see here on the screen sort of the rough boundary of where your organization can be based out of. So you maybe are coming from Caldwell, which was in Canyon County, but if your organization does events and programs within Boise city limits, you are absolutely eligible to apply. So your project is eligible to be funded by this grant if it meets the following list of criteria. And I want to read through this because it's really important and what much of the application is centered on ultimately. So firstly, that your project or program centers arts, history, or cultural-based activities. This can look like a lot of different things, but broadly can be summarized under these three categories. That your project is free or low cost, which we define here at the city as $20 or less per person, or provides scholarship or financial aid to participate. That your application is completed by a human who is representing an organization or community group within those counties that we listed before. That your project or program will take place within Boise city limits. That your project will occur between October 2026 and September 2027. So we're looking at the next fiscal year for the city of Boise. That it meets the American for Disabilities Act standards regarding physical accessibility and complies with the Department of Arts and History's Equal Opportunity Statement. I won't read it here, but you can take a look. And then you include a balanced budget using the provided template related to your project. And ultimately, your grant request through this grant opportunity does not exceed 50% of your total project expenses. And we'll dive deep into that here in a moment. So the types of eligible projects are wide and varied and oftentimes contain sort of intersections of these things that you see listed here. So public programs, events, performances, which can look like, presentations and lectures, guided tours, festivals, all these things in their many forms are eligible for this grant. Displays such as exhibits, whether that's art or history or cultural related, educational experiences, collaborations with other groups for innovative productions or performances, research, planning, or academic analysis is also available for funding through this, and specifically around things that might strengthen Boise's cultural base or understanding of our community. And then virtual and online versions or components of any of these kinds of projects with a clear intent to reach Boise residents. On the application itself, you can select all that apply. So your project or program might hit many of these things, or it might only hit one. But just sort of broadly, these are the sort of projects that can be funded by this opportunity. As far as how grant funds can be used, these are the most common ways that grant funds have been used and are eligible for, but it is certainly not a limited list. Definitely number one, top of the list for most applicants is artist or contractors fees. So thinking about paying those who are creating, performing, or presenting parts of your project or program. Materials and supplies directly needed for that project. Venue and space rentals as needed for the project or program is another one that we see really regularly and is eligible for our grant funding. Marketing and promotion, and this spans from design, printing, advertising, directly related to the funded project. Accessibility expenses is something we're seeing more of and is absolutely eligible for arts and history funds. So bringing in American Sign Language interpretation, captioning, or materials that are in alternate formats such as Braille. And then documentation. So hiring someone to photograph, capture video of, or archive content related to your event or project. So these are the most common ones that we see and are all eligible, but it is not an exclusive list. So something if you have questions about later, we can definitely talk more on. So there are some funding restrictions that I want to make really clear up front as well. So the first sort of funding element to keep in mind is that you can apply for up to $5,000 with this grant, and the floor is $1,000. And then we ask that you apply for funding in $500 increments. So I've listed out all of them here. So please do not send something that's $2,342. We want nice, even numbers in $500 increments. And once again, this should not exceed 50% of the project's total expenses. We do have $150,000 to be distributed among selected projects, although that funding amount will vary based on the number of applications we receive, the scope of the applications that we see, and of course, not all applicants are guaranteed an award. But historically, we do try to award as many applicants as we possibly can. Going back to this idea of not exceeding 50% of your total expenses. So as you build out your budget, we're going to talk more about if, let's say, your total project expenses are $4,000, you may request up to $2,000, and that's 50%, though you can certainly request less. And then depending on available funds, the award that you may receive could be less than the amount requested. So just some things to keep in mind as you plan for your budget and for your application overall. So there are some things that are not eligible for funding. So as you think about what your organization represents or the project type you might be interested in applying with, these are some things that are no-goes. So first, if you are a government agency at the city, county, or state level. Now, nonprofit friends groups are eligible to apply for specific projects, but the agency proper is ineligible. If you're an organization that does already receive significant in-kind support from the city of Boise, for example, if your organization is renting a city-owned facility and receiving support that way. If your organization or community group is outside of that list of counties, and or if you are a City of Boise employee proposing a project that would otherwise fall within your regular scope of work. So something that you would be potentially doing in your day-to-day job is not eligible here. Some ineligible project types include general operating or seasonal support. So we ask that grant funds go towards specific projects or events. That might be something within an overall season, but we're looking at very specific events or opportunities within that. If it is a public art project, so something like a sculpture, a mural, a traffic box, we have a whole team dedicated to that work and happy to share their contact information with you if that's something you want to explore. But we don't do public art projects through this particular grant opportunity. Similar in that line of thinking, if you are creating something that you would like the city to collect or manage long term, that once again is falling into things like public art and our archive program. So happy to connect you with those individuals on my team, but not something that can receive funding here. Projects that are advocating for or against a religion or political group are ineligible, as well as things such as fundraising events, capital campaigns, or endowment funds. There are also some restrictions on how funds can be used. So expenses such as personal education, staff training, professional development, travel, emergencies, loans, software, website domains, and purchasing new equipment for your organization are not eligible. This grant cannot pay for the salary or salaries of staff positions for your organization. It cannot go towards renting or operating costs for your own space. So if you own your own building, it cannot go towards paying, a month of rent or something like that. These funds may not be used for lobbying or political activities, including efforts to influence elections and capital improvements such as renovations, construction, or real estate purchase. So these are all no-nos under this opportunity. And if you have any questions or feel like something is maybe edging on a line between something eligible and ineligible, that is something I'm happy to talk about further right in regards to your specific project. Okay, well, let's talk about evaluation. So when you submit an application, there is, I think, 14 questions this year in the application, and they all touch on specifically or through a few lenses these specific evaluation criteria. So I'm not going to read everything here. This is available on the Arts and Histories website. It's available in the grant guidelines, of which you can print a copy out. Oop, if it doesn't blur. um, so you can look at this really closely, but I want to talk about broadly what these things are. So community benefit, thinking about how your project will benefit or serve Boise residents. We're looking at alignment to the City of Boise and Arts and History vision and mission. So how is your work addressing, celebrating Boise's, past and current and future arts, history, and cultural work, as well as creating a city for everyone. We're looking at project readiness this year. This is a small change from previous years in this grant program. So how well does your application show that you are ready to carry out this project, that you've got your partners and collaborators, and have a clear plan for what you're going to do if you receive funding? We're also looking at implementation and logistics. So once again, digging a little deeper on what is that plan? Uh, do you know the roles and responsibilities of the folks who are helping make your project a success? Do you know the logistics such as permit needs, venue arrangement, your intended audience, and of course that you have your budget balanced and ready to go. You know what this project or program is going to cost to do. We're looking at accessibility, which we sort of break down into two subcategories. The first is affordability. So is your project or program free or low cost, or provides clear pathways to scholarship or financial aid? And then we're also looking at inclusivity. So are you anticipating accommodating those who might participate in your program, of course, with physical accessibility, thinking about language needs, hearing or vision assistance? There is a really excellent guide through the City of Boise on how to create or anticipate to make an accessible event. And it is linked both within the guidelines for this grant and on Arts and History's webpage and on the City of Boise page. So you can find it in a few places, but I would highly recommend checking that out if you're not sure where to begin on this particular point. And then we do have some special considerations. So we award additional points to folks who may be first-time applicants and those who attended or watched this information session. All of you joining today, you can get that extra point. And if you've consulted with arts and history staff prior to applying or requesting a draft review, which I'll talk more about in a minute. So this is on a rubric that scores 1 to 8 for each of these points, and that is essentially what each application is reviewed against. So speaking of review, the way that the Department of Arts and History manages review across all of our funding opportunities is that we have a review panel. And this review panel, while varied in size, I typically have between 5 and 7 individuals on it. These are folks from the community who and our arts and history commissioners who assess grant applications both independently and in coordination with staff to ultimately make funding recommendations for this programming opportunity. Uh, sorry. Okay, cool. Sorry. In a public space here. Okay, so this process ensures a fair and equitable review process and scoring experiences. All review panel members are bound by a conflict of interest policy that is referenced before they are assigned their applications for review. So we're looking for any real or perceived conflict of interest that may arise related to, financial connection, professional connection, or personal connection with an applicant that could compromise for an unbiased review. So in the case that that happens, Boise is a small town in many ways, and it does occur. We actually have that panelist abstain from scoring, commenting, or voting on that application. So trying to keep it as fair as equitable as we possibly can. So here is the timeline. The application for the annual grant opportunity opened last week, and it will be open for several weeks, closing at around 11:55 p.m. on June 16th. So you've got lots of time to get your application in. That community review panel both reviews and scores individually and meets as a whole group to make funding recommendations between the months of June and August. All applicants are notified of their award status by September, and then recipients are announced and awarded their funds beginning in October 2026. And then just as a reminder, we are looking at the year ahead. So these are for projects that are occurring between October and September, October 2026 and September 2027. And then there is a final report. So there's an element of reporting out with this grant. And we ask that that is completed within 30 days of the project's final element, but no later than September 30th, 2027. And if you are awarded, we go into lots of detail about what this looks like and what to do and how to turn it in, all those things. Okay, now to talk a little bit about the application. So the city of Boise uses a grant management platform called Unigrants. If you are a former grant recipient, you experienced this maybe last year. It was called Amplifund, now it's called Unigrants. It changed names halfway through. So what you can do to access the application is create or log into an existing account using the grant application link that is available on Arts and History's website. This gives you a direct connection to that application. If you're a first-time user, you will need to create an account, but then it will sort of send you back to the application page, which is really nice. The website is www.go-to-mygrants.com. That is how you can re-enter your account if you already have an account in Unigrants. And then if you ever find that you are running into an issue or you were an applicant last year and you've forgotten your login information, their support email is really timely. They're really wonderful, and it's there on the screen for your use. Or if you find that you're having any tech issues along the way, they are really on top of it. Okay, so how do you get to that application link? So here is a screenshot of the City of Boise Department of Arts and History's webpage. When you go to the top navigation bar, there is a tab called Opportunities. And when you click on that, you get all these options to click on, but you'll want to go to the open calls section, and specifically the FY27 grant program. So this is all currently live on the website. When you click into that page, I've just screen capped the top part of it, but all the information we're talking about today, and some additional links such as to the accessible events document can be found here. But that top little link right there where the red star is how you actually get into the application for this grant opportunity. So you'll click on that and it will launch you into a page that looks like this. So this is how you know you're in the right place. You should see Arts Industry at the top, annual grant, FY27. And same thing here. There is a lot of repeated information as well as my contact information, so you can get a sense of what this opportunity is again. And you can also if you look at the top navigation bar here, there's the opportunity details, but you can also get a reminder of what that criteria is that you will be scored against and how many points that is overall. There is an application tutorial video on Arts and History's website, so literally walking step by step through how to create an account, get back to your application, how to go through the application step by step. So it's about 9 or 10 minutes long. So if this is a first time for you, I would highly recommend watching that video before you begin or while you fill out your application as it goes by piece by piece. So that's what the application looks like. I'm not going to go into the series of questions here during this information session. All those are available on the website. So back on this landing page here. And there's also a grants guideline document that you can download as well. And of course, they are within the application themselves. What I do want to focus on is an additional item that you include as part of your application, which is the budget. So when you are in the application, there is a budget template. It looks just like what you're seeing on screen right now. It's blank and is a Excel document that you can fill in directly. And it is required that you use this template and fill it out, save it, and then re-upload it to the application in Unigrants. The grant tutorial, application video, goes through this step by step as well. But this is a really important part of your overall application because it is the numbers narrative that will align with how you answer each of the application questions. So this budget template is broken down into two sections. The first is expenses, and these are essentially your costs. This is everything that your project needs to spend money on, and it really answers the question of, how much do I need to make this project happen? What is it going to cost to make it happen? So in this template, you have two main types of expenses. You have your cash expenses, which you can see in column B here. And those are the things that you are going to pay out of pocket or out of your organization or community groups, existing funds. And then you have your in-kind or volunteer contributions, which represent the goods and services that are being donated to you or discounted, essentially the things that you would normally have to pay for. But maybe you've worked out a deal with your venue or you have a lot of volunteers who are helping at your event. We definitely want to account for the value of those volunteer hours and those donated costs. So you'll notice in column A that we have listed what I guess are like the most common expense categories that most applicants have for their projects or programs. These categories are really here just to guide you. So you only need to complete the rows that are relevant to your project. If you do have additional expenses, you'll see starting around row 8, there are these other expense lines. So you are welcome to update the name of those sections with whatever your other expenses might be. So rename them to reflect, the needs of your project. And then one thing that I really want to emphasize here that uh, allows for especially reviewers to understand how your budget and your application talk to and connect with each other is column E, which you can see here says explanation. So this is an opportunity to provide in brief the details about how that particular cost is supporting your overall project. You might even copy paste elements of your written application narrative over here. That would totally be okay. We're just trying to build connection and explanation across, all right, this is how much it's going to cost for me to rent my venue. This is why this venue is uh, the important space for my project to occur. This is why it is the place we want to hold this project, whatever your details might be. When you're thinking about the human resources behind your project, please, please, please count that volunteer hours in your own time in administering the project, and look at what the current, I guess, rate of a volunteer or value is of a volunteer hour is. The Do Good Institute, which looks at sort of national trends, currently values a volunteer hour between $31.80 and $34.79. So that range is something to look towards, and I would encourage you to consider that rate range when you are calculating, especially the value of your volunteer time. If you have a rate that you use for yourself, if you're an independent artist trying to fund a project and your rate is something larger or less than that, please adjust accordingly. Okay. The second part of this budget template is related to income, or another word for this might be revenue. So this is all the money supporting the project, and it answers the question, where is the funding coming from? So just like your expense section, you only need to complete the rows that are applicable to your project. And this template breaks down income into two categories, which is secured and expected. Secured income represents funding that you already have confirmed. Perhaps you have already received a grant from another organization, so you want to put that in the secured category. And then your expected income includes funds that you've requested or you anticipate receiving, such as ticket sales or this grant. So you want to make sure you break things down into the accurate category for what is related to your project. A big thing to note is that as you build your budget, you want to remember that your total project income needs to match your total project expenses. And what's really nice about this Excel document is that it will let you know if it doesn't. So you'll notice there's this green box down here, and on the previous page, it's red here, but it typically is green. When you are auto summing here in this document, if those two things are not matching up, both boxes will turn red, and when they do match, they will turn green. So that is just a nice visual reminder for to double check that your budget is balanced. As a reminder, again, our grant can only cover up to 50% of your total project income. And this does include in-kind contributions, donated materials, space, all those things. So, to be really clear again, we're not covering things like operating costs, rent, utilities, payroll. This funding is intended for a specific aspect or specific project that can fall within a bigger season of things, but we're looking it's a little bit more narrow is one way to think about it. I think the budget can be the most intimidating part of this whole process, and I'm really happy to support walking through this if that is a service you would like. I do a lot of it every year, and I feel very comfortable in this space, so happy to support. Oh, I wanted to show a really great example of a budget. So this comes from a successful grant recipient application. And what I love about this budget is that you can see that there is really clear. They understand where their cash expenses are coming from. They've calculated their in-kind volunteer, and they've explained all that in their explanation section. Some of the explanations are short, right? In row four, $400 stipend per artist, 6 artists total, three per showing. Like they sort of break down that math, which is really helpful. And then you can see in row six, they have a little bit more information here to explain how their lease situation is going to work out. So this is a great example of a budget well done that is thinking very diversely about where their income is coming from and where their expenses lie. Okay, and some final budget reminders. You are required to use the template that is within the application. There's also a copy on Arts Nursery's website. Make sure your grant request is 50% or less than your total budget. Show your work. Those brief explanations are super helpful. Make sure everything is balanced. You want to make sure you rename your document when you re-upload it. Last year we had a couple snafus where folks did not rename and then they submitted a blank document. We were able to correct those, but it takes a couple extra steps. So I would recommend renaming your document. And then a hot tip that I have recently learned is for successful auto sum in this document, it does all the math for you, which I love, but you do want to type that information in the formula bar. So select where you want it to be in the document and then actually type it up in the top bar there. And then it will do the math, and it's amazing. Okay, I've got a couple suggestions and opportunities for support when it comes to your application. So, a big one is that if you are working in partnership with another organization or individual, you have some collaborators, make sure you have those commitments set before you officially apply. I would even encourage you to get together with those collaborators and apply together, like be in the same room or work on these questions in an outside document like a Google Doc, just so that everyone is a voice and a contributor and feels confident about what the project is that you're applying for. It's There's been a couple run-ins where people have applied and thinking that they're going to have this partnership, and then that partnership didn't realize that they were going to be part of the project, which is a little awkward. So yeah, definitely check in and confirm with those partners before you apply. Would strongly encourage you to read the guidelines carefully, read them through a few times. If anything inspires a question for you, please reach out. Happy to clarify anything that you want to dig a little bit more in on. When it comes to the application, make sure you're really answering the question asked and get clear and be concise. Get outside eyes and ears on your question as well. Reading aloud, I have found, has always helped, to hear the written work and be like, okay, does this make sense to myself, or read it aloud to someone else to help see if you're answering that question really directly. I will note that it is okay to connect the dots and repeat or have some things that might seem repetitive throughout the application. That is not a negative. I think, builds cohesion throughout an application. So if you feel like, oh no, am I saying the same thing too many times? That's not necessarily a bad thing. It might mean you just have like a very clear vision and you want to really drive that point home. I would encourage you to draft your answers in a document before beginning the Unigrants application. You can always save and come back to your application, but in the off chance that technology decides to be sassy that day, it is nice to have your drafted answers in a secondary place. And then finally, I think a great way to build confidence for the review panel, just in a small way in your writing, is state what will be. Avoid words like might, maybe, or could. Like be very um, action oriented in your writing. And then another opportunity for support is you can actually submit your application draft to me for feedback in advance of officially clicking the apply button. So I am not a member of the review panel. I just guide the process, make sure everyone is supported in helping make those recommendations after the review. So I do not score anything. So I can look at your application in advance and provide a lot of feedback. And I love doing it. So please take this opportunity. It is first come, first serve. And I ask that you give me at least 1 week to review so I can give a really thorough review of your application. I do have sort of a cutoff date for my review, which is June 9th. So that's about a week before the application closes on June 16th. So I will get, if you send it to me June 9th, I will get it to you before the 16th. But earlier is better. The sooner the better, that's for sure. And once again, my contact information is here on the screen and my office hours. I'm happy to meet virtually, in person, talk over the phone, whatever works best for you. Okay, that is the kind of the broad sweep of the information. If there are any questions, I would be happy to answer. Maybe I'll keep my contact information up here. Everyone should have access to the chat, and if not the chat, the Q&A. Oh, let me make sure everyone has access. Okay, there we go. Now everyone has access to the chat. Give folks a second to put in questions. Oh, nice. Here's one. Okay. Someone wants to know, will we get a copy of this presentation? Yes. So a recording of this presentation will be sent to you through Zoom, so you can access it there. It will also be on Arts and History's website. So you can look back at this. But I will say that all the information that I've covered today, if you want more reading material, is available in a document that you can print out. Oh my gosh, the blurry screen every time, or on the website as well.